Hi, welcome to the BariNation podcast, where we support the bariatric community with humor, humility, and honesty. I'm April.
I'm Jason.
I'm Natalie.
And today, my friends, it is the three of us, and we are really excited about the thing that we are going to talk about. It's something that all three of us have experienced. We know that so many people in the bariatric community experience, and just humans in general, and that is food noise. Dun, dun, dun. The dreaded hunger monster, right? That constant chatter in the back of our head about food. Was it like in 2023 or 2024, right? That word really blew up or it became a word, food noise. Thank you
Yeah.
to, right? Okay. The anti-obesity explosion medication, right? All that kind of stuff. It's something that we've always experienced. Maybe we haven't been able to put a label on it, but I think we could each describe specifically what it was. So before we really dive into this conversation, I just want to let you know, if you are listening or you are watching this and food noise, head hunger, emotional eating, this constant chatter up here about food that you maybe have been experiencing, we have been too. So today's conversation is just a heart-to-heart conversation from the three of us to you, explaining how it has appeared in our lives, what it looks like, feels like, its presence in our life, and what we as patients have done to acknowledge it and kind of work through it. Not that every day or every moment's a success, but this is what we've been doing. All right. If you guys are ready, I say let's just dive in.
Go.
All right. First things first, food noise. How or when did you realize that this was a thing in your life? Jason, we'll start with you, then Nat, and then I will share.
The funny thing for me is I noticed it was a thing when I was post-op, had been going through the work, and I got about to the 6-7 month mark, and I started realizing, I was like, well, I know that I've gotten hungry now, and I know I can eat a little bit more now, but I'm starting to get like almost intrusive type thoughts of like, I should, and it wasn't just like a, hey, a cheeseburger sounds good. It was like, you need a cheeseburger. Like, you need it in your life. Like, you need it. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like, oh, maybe I can just do a lettuce wrap. Maybe I can. It was like, you need full bun, full fat, juices dripping, all the cheese, all the everything, like full blown. And it was like descriptive in such a way that it was like, no, this is what, like, you, it's not something that you should think about getting. It's, you got to do it, or it's like, you got it.
You know what's so
And it,
interesting about, oh, sorry, dude. The fact that in your personal conversation inside your head, not only were you like, this is exactly what I need, but all of these other things won't suffice. No, it can't be lettuce wrap. No, it can't be this. It has to has all of these. Like, these are legit full-on conversations that are going on in our brain, like all the time.
yeah, well, and it was funny because I've had, like, even pre-op, I had lettuce wrap burgers, and I like them. Like, I enjoy them. They don't bother. It's not like I'm like, lettuce. Like, no, I go in. But like in my head, it was like, no, buddy, like, you need this. Like, you got to go the full ride, or you don't, like, it's not going to be the same. And
Mhm.
that's really what it was. It was like, you remember, come on, you remember, you know what it's like, all that feeling. And it legit probably was the fact that I was, like, I kept McDonald's in business for a while. I probably, if anybody has stock of McDonald's and their value went up, it's because of me. Um, I was crushing about 12 to 14,000 calories a day, strictly at McDonald's, 3 meals a day, if not more than that, just crushing it. And legitimately, like, that had to be what it was from, because that's what I thought I was, quote unquote missing. But, when you actually give in and go back to it, you realize, like, it's awful. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't make you feel good. Nothing about it is good.
Mhm.
And it was really funny because when I had my revision and Dr. Joe was like, no red meat until, like, I'm not supposed to have red meat till June. I, yeah, we failed at that. We've had red meat a couple times. So, but it wasn't until the other night. I've eaten it, and the reaction that my body gives off of having the SATI and is not good. So I wouldn't attribute it to that in my brain, because I'm stubborn and I'm hard-headed and I think I have to have red meat to live because that's how I grew up. I'm from, Oklahoma, and that's what we do. You eat meat, potatoes, red meat, all the things. And it wasn't until I was cleaning the pan out from cooking burgers that I started like scraping the pan, because I let it cool all the way down till the grease had solidified so that I didn't pour it down the drain. I put it the right way. But every scrape of the pan, I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's what my insides look like right now. The inside of my body looks like this pan right now. I was like, and why would I continue to do that to myself? And so as I threw the grease away, I put dinner up and was like, I'm not doing that again. If it's not turkey, I'm not doing it. Like, turkey's not as good, but I'm just not, I can't continue to do that because I can't suffer the side effects that happens to me almost immediately after the fact. And not to mention the fact of like, it doesn't make me feel good, even aside from the side effects. So just willingly doing that to myself again, I was just like, nah, I'm good. I just tapped
We
out.
didn't we talk about this the other day? We went live in the BariNation membership community, and we were talking about kind of this food noise, this drive to enjoy the foods that maybe we used to enjoy before surgery. And we compared it to kind of what addicts can go through, right? You're always chasing that very first experience with some type of substance. And we found that after surgery, that food noise is back, or it never left. And we enjoy, or we eat whatever we are craving or thinking about, but it never hits the same. It's just not the same. And that's kind of one of the things that we want to talk with you all about today, is like, what are some strategies that we can lean into when the food noise really becomes so strong? And that is absolutely one of them. But yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you, Jason. Nat, what about you?
Yeah, I think I've always known that I've had some kind of food noise that was different from others. When I really realized it was different, was also post VSG in probably 2021, 6, 7, that time frame, 6, 7 months post-op. And I found myself scrolling on Uber Eats and Postmates like it was social media, like scrolling. I'm talking like spending hours of time scrolling on these apps and thinking like, ooh, that sounds good, but actually there's something over here and maybe I could get a deal over here. Spending hours of my time, I would order something and then I would eat it and I'd be like, that really sucked. Like that was not very good. And I just paid like probably triple what I would normally pay if I just went to the restaurant. So it was also a shopping thing. I think it was hand in hand of like just wanting to feel like I made a transaction, I'm doing something. But what really got me was, even though I would order something and it would be really subpar, I would do it again the next week. Next Friday, I would pick up my phone and I'd start scrolling on Uber Eats. And it wasn't until one of Laura's emotional eating support groups where I brought this, I was like, I can't get off Uber Eats or Postmates. Like I can't. Like I'll delete the app from my phone. The next week I'll just be on it again. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like how am I here again? I just had surgery for this. And that was when I learned all about head hunger and what that means and food noise and all of this. And I was like, oh, that was my food noise being like, remember when you used to Uber Eats every night and you'd eat yourself into a coma and it felt so good? Yeah, of course I remember. I'm trying to get back there. But like that was really what it was like, oh, that big part of my evening routine was taken away from me and I was seeking it again. And it really, that moment when I attended that support group and said it out loud, and then she came back and said, yeah, because you have head hunger and you have food noise and like, welcome. I was like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, this is the thing that one of the things that was really holding me down before. And I'm just right back here again, seeking the same dopamine hit that will just never, ever be the same ever again. And that was a really brutal realization. I have a visualization for addiction and things like that that I just saw on TikTok too, that I just want to share because it's spot on and exactly how I felt in that moment, even 3 years later, kind of reflecting. But it's a bird and he's walking along this street, this sidewalk, and he sees this bright, you've seen it. It's like a bright yellow orb. And he's like, "Ooh, what's this?" I'm thinking about it. And he eats it or whatever, and then he just flying high and he's feeling so good, and then he comes back down and he's on the same sidewalk and he's walking, and then he sees another one and it gives him this same rush, and then eventually it just wears down and he's like beaten up and sad and dark and still searching for that dopamine. And when I saw that like over the weekend, and I haven't been able to get it out of my brain, but that's how it felt. Like that moment of, what do you mean the thing that has gotten me through my whole life is now not going to do that now? And then what do I do about it? Which I know we're going to talk more about it, but yeah, I mean, the food noise is real, especially at that 6 to 9 month mark.
For some of us, right, the food noise never goes away. For some of us, we get a break from it from a short period. But I think for many of us, it returns. Hunger returns, head hunger returns, emotional eating returns, and this food noise, this food chatter continues because, like that bird, we were using food to soothe, to comfort, to numb out, right, to kill boredom. And every time we would go for that orb, it was a little less shiny, but you just keep going because you're hopeful that it's going to deliver what it first delivered in your life. And it's important to know that this food noise, this constant chatter, is like what Jason and Natalie described. It can be connected to other facets of your life, right? It's food noise in shopping. It's food noise in social. It's food noise in cultural. It's this ever constant voice or presence in your head that is talking to you about food, right? It could be the food that you want to eat, the food that you have eaten, how you want to prepare it, where you want to eat, what it's like anything that has to do with food in general. It's just this constant chatter that can be present in our heads. And before surgery, we might not know that it's there. But after surgery, when we get a break or some distance, right? Surgery can provide this like physical, this mental, this emotional break and give us distance to actually see what we're dealing with. That's when we can acknowledge, oh my gosh, this food noise has been taking up so much space in my brain. Because when it's gone, you can feel like there's this void in your life. I can remember thinking a couple months after surgery, sitting in my chair, looking out at the view going, why do I feel like I have so much flipping time on my hands? And it's when I realized, oh my God, I'm not thinking about food. And it was in that moment that I realized just how much chatter was actually happening up here about food noise. So if this is you, hi, hello, welcome. This is not a you problem. You are not a bad human. This is your brain doing what your brain does. And obesity research is showing that part of the disease of obesity impacts our hormones and how our hormones communicate with our organs and our brain. So all of this is interconnected. So you aren't doing anything wrong. This is just what the disease does and how it presents. So shout out to the BariNation membership community, Laura Grabo, and all of our amazing therapists and RDs and everybody that works in there, because the three of us have learned to acknowledge what this food noise is. We can oftentimes determine when our hunger is presenting as emotional or head hunger or real physical hunger. Not every time, like that's not what we're saying, but we're practicing and we're getting really good at it. So if you are experiencing these same thoughts too, and you're like, I just don't know how to overcome this, or I don't know how to start doing the work, we invite you to join the BariNation membership community and start attending these very targeted support groups on emotional eating, on regain, on life and maintenance. come to our nutritional chats with our RDs, because the magic of BariNation and the work of weight loss surgery is this. It's actually having the space to ask these questions to an expert with peers and have everybody just go, oh yeah, no, I've been there. And then take in the knowledge that you then practice in your own life, and you return to the community and you go, oh, I tried this. So, right, if you've been wondering what the heck it is, that's what BariNation is. It's this conversation at an expert and about 10 other people. There you go. So food noise is ever present. I have been on a GLP-1 medication for about the last year and a half, but 5 weeks ago, it was added to the national shortage list, and I have not been able to take my medication. Jason, I know you experienced this as well before surgery, right? And Natalie, you have been working on this food noise, for years. So what I really realized is that after about 2 weeks of not being on that medication, all of a sudden, boom, extremely strong hunger and constant food noise up here returned, like with a vengeance. I stepped on the scale. I was up 11 pounds, 15 pounds. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, 183 to 190 something. And I just thought, okay, I was very quickly on that medication able to stop thinking about and stop practicing all of those bariatric things that I had been doing to combat that food noise and that hunger. And then when the three of us started talking about it, we were like, oh yeah, this is actually something we should talk about from the patient perspective. Because while the medication is amazing and the progress that they're making is phenomenal, it is still a medication that might not be accessible to you, or like me and Jason, you could start it and then you could have it taken away. So we have to onboard these skills and these tools and utilize them constantly, even if we are on medication, and acknowledge that if that access to medication goes away, we have to continue to be able to tap into those tools to get us through these moments. So we just want to share with you some things that we have been trying, the things that we have noticed have worked for us, and just share kind of what we're going to continue to do moving forward. So Jason, what are those go-to tools that you have been using when that food noise kicks back in?
I will say that post-op revision has been easier for me than post-op sleeve was, but it's really just because of the educational piece. Like, we've had so many great conversations. I've had so many, experiences in groups in the BariNation community, as well as my own, meetup that I lead in BariNation. It really has just been one of those things where I've had to have honest conversations with myself, much like the burger situation, that there's just better. Like, I've got the opportunity to rewrite, history, so to speak, for myself. And why not take that? Like, I know what the other makes me feel like. I know, like, I've seen it. I've seen both sides. I've seen pre-op, I've seen post-op, and I've seen, regain. I've seen weight reoccurrence based on those decisions. So why would I, given the information that I have now, post, revision, I just chose not to put myself in those situations where I, am going to make more poor choices than good choices in reference to the things that I could be fueling my body with. Now, am I perfect all the time? Absolutely not. Do I? Yeah. I stumble, I fall, I fall, I do those things, but I pick myself back up again and I go back for the things that I know. So I've been replacing a lot of snack stuff with fruit, because it's so much easier for me to grab that than it is. I mean, it's just as easy for me to grab that as it is for me to. So one of the grocery stores here, you can buy just pre-cut everything, and it just comes in a little bowl. You just pop the top off, a couple pieces, put it down, good to go. So it's been, right now I'm just on a watermelon and cantaloupe kick, and I've just been eating it like there's nobody's business. So I had to just make those tough decisions for myself, because would I rather have a burger? Absolutely. Everybody that knows me that has had that conversation knows I'll eat a burger or pizza until I explode, because those are my two weaknesses. And I have not touched either one of them in a couple of weeks. Well, the burgers were just the other day, and then I put those down. So I won't say that for that. But pizza's been a couple of weeks. Burgers have been recent, but I just I don't want to feel like that anymore. And to me, it just took a lot of head work for me to get there, and a lot of being open with my conversations with you guys, with, family, with friends, with everybody else, and just saying, like, these are things that I don't want to feel anymore, because if I block myself to those feelings, I will not feel it all the way up until my mobility is bad again, until the weight comes back again, until I do it. And I know that I don't want to feel like that. So in order for me to understand what I'm potentially doing to myself, I have to open myself up to feel all of the feelings. And that's also what's helped me process those feelings into saying, I could do that. However, how are we going to feel? And I've connected to that consciousness and how those feelings felt, to the point that I'm like, yeah, I remember that, and I don't want to do it. So has it been easy? Absolutely not. Is it perfect and foolproof? Absolutely not. But does it work more often than not? So far, yes.
Right. And that's what you're going for. That's what I think we're all going for. We know that perfection is not real, but if we can do something more often than not, we are headed in the right direction. And really, Jason, when I think back about all that you've already shared, right, you're using visualization, right? You really took some time to think about what that food was doing in your insides, right? What it would do for you. You've onboarded medication, or excuse me, you've onboarded community, you've onboarded education. You are really choosing what you want most over what you want right now, which is something we talk about often and is really hard to do. And I know that you have been talking to us and a ton of people in the BariNation membership community about these like internal dialogue conversations that you're having, just to just to get them out of you and be like, nope, this is what is going on in my head, and here's how I'm kind of talking back to what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but I just realized that, and also having the visual connection of seeing the scale, my clothes, how things fit, needing a belt for almost every pair of pants I have now, because even the smaller pairs of pants that I was having trouble getting on before need a belt now. So it's just those types of things that I see, that when I make decisions that better myself, when we talked about that rule of majority, that really flipped me upside down. Like, majority is 51% of the time. We can do 51% of the time. We can do better than that if we really push for it. But we could do 51% in our sleep. So the fact that I realized that once I started making those decisions, I started seeing better results in not only the way I was feeling, but the way my clothes were fitting. I started to enjoy more of what I saw in the mirror, and how I felt in my clothes, the confidence I was starting to gain from that. So it really did help propel me into continuing to make those decisions, because the benefits were actually paying off.
It's a really powerful thing when we start small. And I know that sounds like corny and cliched, but it's really not, because all of the research is showing we change when we feel good about the changes that we're making, even if it's hard in the moment. Like, you ate a hamburger, you didn't feel well, right? You saw that visualization and you're like, oh my God, this is just not right. And instead of telling yourself, I'm never going to have a hamburger again, you said, the next time I eat a burger, it's going to be with turkey, right? Or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that. That's not a huge monumental change. It's just these little things. It's swapping out some of the snacking that you were doing for fruit, right? Which can be doing all kinds of things for you, nutrition, and you feel better about that decision, right? So the more little tweaks that you can make to feel better about what you're doing, the more empowered you're going to be to continue to make those same decisions, right? And like what, and again, like, thank you for saying that. You've been at this for almost 4 years now.
Actually, I'm over 4 years.
right?
Mhm.
People, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I'm never going to get there, if you just started this journey, you literally just started. Like, think about a 4-year-old. Think about all of the things that a 4-year-old doesn't know how to do yet and is just trying to figure it all out. That's what this is about. It is not about knowing how to be a bariatric patient the day you wake up from surgery. It's about acknowledging that I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to try different things, and I'm going to connect with the community. I'm going to onboard education. I'm going to practice. I'm going to practice what it means to be a bariatric patient. And as Jason and as Nat and as I am sharing with you today, what worked for a little bit all of a sudden stops working. And then we need to practice and figure out how we do this as life continues to change. But it's just never giving up. And it's always having these conversations with people that we trust is huge as well.
And if a doctor can practice medicine, you can practice being a bariatric patient with no shame.
Drop the mic on that one. Mm-hmm. Just saying. Just saying. Miss Nat, what about you? What's helped food noise for you?
Therapy, number one, numero uno. Everyone deserves to go to therapy and should go to therapy. That was my number one plug until the day I die. That really has helped me through a lot, is just kind of like what Jason was saying, just verbalizing, these are the thoughts going through my head, having someone kind of just untangle them into more manageable pieces. All of that has been really helpful. As far as like what to do in the moment, also very similar to Jason. I think especially with chronic illness and things like that, it's like, man, oh shoot, I haven't eaten for, X amount of hours because yeah, food struggles are struggles. And so then I'll be like, okay, cool. Well, what sounds good? Because right now I'm kind of like survival mode most of the time, but I am still trying to eat like a well-rounded diet and things like that. So I'm like, okay, what sounds good? Figuring out, let's say a burger. Burger sounds good. Burger with fries, whatever. Okay, remember the last time you ate a burger and fries and you were bedridden for the rest of the day and then you were in pain the day after? Like, remember that? And having to actually sit down and be like, okay, what's actually going to be good for my body today? What are things that are safe foods that I know and have eaten time and time again? They don't hurt my stomach or make me feel icky. And just kind of resorting to those kind of like safer foods, even when that food noise is getting really loud, has helped me. Like, I know that I can eat cucumbers and ranch, or I know I can eat cheese and crackers. I know I can eat, whatever, fill in the blank. I know I can have a protein shake. Like, kind of filling in those things, because for me, my food noise is like nothing is ever going to satisfy, right? Because it's in my head. And so I know from experience that I'm just going to keep eating until I can't anymore. Um, and so for me, it's like I have to kind of cut that food noise trap short and just say like, okay, you're gonna eat some cucumbers and ranch, which I make with blended cottage cheese, or sometimes I just mix it with cottage cheese, by the way. Jason, don't want to hear it. You haven't even tried it, so
You're just so cutting you off.
But I did. But I did.
and
Tab made it.
until
Tab made
I see
blended
it,
cottage cheese ranch.
until I see it with my own eyeballs, you did not try it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I can say like, yeah, cottage cheese and cucumbers or whatever. I know that you can eat that. It's in the fridge. You're just gonna make it. And then sometimes I'm not even hungry. Like, and then I eat 2 bites and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I put it away and then I just go about my business. But I've learned with myself that I just have to cut it off. I just have to stop it. I guess Laura says catch it, check it, change it, right? So I just have to catch it and say, like, we're not doing this. We're not doing it. I'm gonna go make what I know is something that I can make. And if I eat a couple bites and I'm like, meh, then I just put it up and I eat it
Mhm.
later. But like,
Mhm.
I can't. I guess I'm in kind of a no BS era with myself because I'm like, we've been down here, we've done this.
Right?
These tools that you have right now in your fridge, just go get it now. Get that and stop with this because this is driving you crazy.
Yes. And it's so annoying when it just won't turn off. But what I've come to realize is that I haven't figured out yet how to turn this off, but what I can figure out is how to talk back to it.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
instead of me obsessing and worrying about like, oh my God, why is this happening? It's happening because I have the disease of obesity. That's why it's happening. What can I do about that? Well, I can eat whole food, nutrient dense diet. I can make sure that I'm well hydrated. I can take my vitamins. I can start with protein. I can chew for 20 times. I can eat slowly. I can move my body. I can add and resist. Like I can do all of these things. Plus, I can talk back to it.
And I will say, in the realm of like, we are not perfect, we are patients learning alongside all of you. When I am feeding into the food noise, I will verbalize. I know that I'm emotionally eating right now. And because that way I can see it and like we've been saying, I can drop a pin and say, this is where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
I am emotionally eating gummy worms or Cheez-Its or whatever. And I know that I am. And that's for me, that's the difference this time is like,
Mhm.
I know the signs, I know what I'm doing. I don't have the capacity to change it, but I can at least catch it and check it and be okay. And that is a win for me.
It is such a powerful tool that Laura teaches us in her emotional eating classes and her support group in BariNation. I went to Katie Booker's bariatric coping skills class last Friday. Shout out to Katie. That was an amazing class. And we talked about it too in Monique's meetup that was later on that day. But she said something that tagged along beautifully with what I learned from Laura. And she said, hunger is not an emergency. Hunger is not an emergency. And that stopped me in my tracks because I instantly thought, but it is in my world. It is for me. Hunger is an absolute emergency. When I am hungry, it is a 911, all hands on deck, APP, like the president called up all the armed forces, like this is an emergency. And there is nothing in my world that can distract me from dealing with this emergency. So we had that conversation in this class with Katie, and she said, "No, absolutely. In our minds, that emotional side of us and the disease is saying this is an emergency. This is an emergency, and you spent your entire life running everything you had towards that emergency." And she said, "But you actually have a different paradigm now. You have a new tool. So hunger can still present this emergency signal in you, but now you have the power to go, wait a minute, is this really an emergency or is this an emotional reaction to it? Right? It's that pause. We talked about in that class, pause and pivot, which we say all the time in BariNation. What I realized is that when I pause, so I realize, oh my God, okay, this food noise is spiraling and I'm just so hungry, even though I'm not. It's emotional because I'm thinking about something specific. Right. So I pause and I'm like, oh my God, okay. Oh, I need to get some space. I am absolutely, this is emotional eating. I instantly move to problem solving, instantly in that pause. But what that does is actually throw me off course because I'm like, oh my God, I have to solve why I'm feeling this way. What's going on in my life and what's triggering this? And oh my God, why can't I figure this out? And I'm just such a failure. And no. And it spirals me off onto Mars. And when I'm there, there is no hope for me making any decision that is aligned to the person that I want to become and to the bariatric person that I want to be. So in that class, Katie said, so in your pause, I challenge you to not problem solve. Just take a pause. And don't worry about what comes necessarily right after that. Just take the pause. Do anything other than problem solve. And I was like, oh, you got to be, that is like the first, yeah, because you guys know I'm writing a novel on how I'm solving this. And it has been fascinating when I actually am taking that pause and not problem solving. Because what I am discovering, especially now that I'm totally off these medications, is I feel hungry all the time. I feel constantly hungry. But I can take a sip of water and I realize, oh, I'm full. Or I take a sip of water and it's like, girl, you are thirsty. You are parched like the Sahara Desert because you have not been drinking. So you need to take in some water, right? So when I do these little things and I get this pause, I get the space between that hunger, that panic doesn't last as long as what I was thinking it was. Right? 911 emergency goes off and I instantly send all of the services to help it. And it's like, but this alarm is only going to go off for like 15 seconds. And if I just wait it out, if I just pause and not problem solve, it's either going to go away or I'm going to figure it out. And I'm like, oh my God. So I've been using that as a tool and a technique. Like what Jason said, I am not snacking. I am eating meals and I am sitting down and I'm eating a full meal and I'm stopping when I'm full. I'm going back to kind of that bariatric basic eating, eat 20 bites, eat slow, put my fork down. And I'm realizing I'm not actually as hungry as what I think I am up here because my tool is telling me that I am actually full. Right. So when I feel full, but this is going, but you're not full yet. Okay. That's something that I need to deal with later on today, but I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'm just going to tell myself I am physically full. I've had a nutritious meal and now I'm done. And that hunger can continue to exist inside of me. And that is for me to problem solve by asking myself those questions and actually answering them, but not in the moment. That's for me to go upstairs and journal about. That's for me to call both of you and go, you will not believe what is going through my head right now, right? It's a time for me to pop into a BariNation group and go, this is what I'm telling myself. This is what I'm telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to do it there in the moment. So that was a huge, huge takeaway for me. And I know I'm not alone, right? Because hunger feels like such an emergency to all of us, but it really isn't. It is the disease of obesity working against us, and keeping us at a place that we just don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fruit will humble you real quick. I've realized that like I don't even eat protein bars for the most part anymore. Like I'll have one occasionally, but fruit, nah, look, I no matter how hungry I think I am, 3, 4 pieces of watermelon, I'm out.
Right?
Just 3, 4,
I
and they're
know.
like little smaller chunks. And I mean, and that's it. Like I'll eat a few of those, and it's like, oh no, I'm good. And I used to do the whole thing where I would drink the protein shake, not touch stuff till 11 o'clock, then not eat till like 1:30. And now if I open, I'll have my protein shake because I've backed everything back, a little bit of time because I start earlier now in the day. But by 9:15, I'll crush a few pieces of watermelon. I'm good until lunch at 1:30. Like I don't 1:30. Like I don't. It just sits there.
You know what I really appreciate about you sharing that, Jason, right? Like how we eat as a bariatric patient is going to change constantly. How you eat a few weeks out of surgery is different from how you eat a few months out of surgery. That's different from year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Like your bariatric eating style is going to constantly change as you heal, as your physiologic body continues to age, right? As you go through revision, as you go through all these other things. So it's okay to have to kind of revisit the best way for you to eat as a patient as you move through your journey. It's okay to meet with a dietitian once, twice, 3 times a year just to check in, right? It's okay to have those check-in moments with yourself and just go, oh, I think I need to change up how I'm eating because I got a new job or my kids are in school or something has changed or we've moved, like every 18 months, it seems like something is happening and that could require some change.
We think all the time that, and I still get in this headspace too, but I see it a lot. Social media, in BariNation, support community. We think we're just going to eat out of these tiny little cups for the rest of our life. And then we get to a year post surgery and we're like, oh shoot, like I can eat like an appetizer plate of food. What the heck,
Mhm.
or, 3.5 years post-op. Oh, I can actually eat like 3 meals and 2 snacks in a day instead of like a bunch of little mini meals. It's like, that's really scary. And I want to acknowledge to anyone listening, if you're like, I'm looking at my plate and it's bigger, or I can finish more, I'm still hungry, you might just not be eating enough also. Like, please also know that like and I'm not a medical professional at all, but like I just know from speaking to a lot of medical professionals, sometimes patients are just not eating enough. So,
Mhm.
contact your team, contact a dietitian. We have so many in the bariatric or BariNation space that are happy to help you. We have nutrition talks every week with Jeannie Boyer, Kayla Gergen, who are both registered dietitians, there to help answer your questions. But truly, like there was a period of time where I was not eating enough, and I was like, man, I am constantly hungry. And I took that to my nutritionist, and she was like, yeah, because you're literally not, you're eating 2 ounces of food and you're a year post-op. And I'm like, like no one told me. So I just wanted to also acknowledge, like, it may be food noise. It also just could mean that you're not eating enough. So there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, that was the first thing I started to say. It was like when you start getting out of it, you'd be like, "Well, I ate my 2 ounces, and I'm still starving to death because we weren't made to eat 2 ounces forever. Like that's the body's not sustainable to do that. Once you get out of your body starts healing and things start going, back to normal, you're gonna have to eat. So
Yep. And if you're listening or you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, there's so many things that I can try. Don't don't push yourself into analysis paralysis. Think about what we've shared today. Think about what is true in your life, in your experience, and pick one of these strategies and experiment. Give it a try. Collect some data, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then just keep rinsing and repeating until you do find that thing that truly helps. Because if you don't change anything, nothing is going to change. You're going to be continuing to battle at the same level that you are now. And that is not where you want to be. You do want to be somewhere else. You do want to have a little bit more control or understanding over this food noise. You do want to onboard some things that help it be not so overwhelming. And you start that by doing one thing, picking one thing and trying it. That's how that's how we change.
Mhm.
All right, my friends. So we have something very special that we want to share with you. But before we do that, you guys know I always love to just kind of wrap this up. So if you were talking to a bariatric friend that was struggling with this, what would be the one quick thing, the biggest bang for your buck that you could share with them to help them start to overcome food noise in their life? Jason, what would yours be?
um I really like what you said, what Katie said. It's not an emergency. Like your hunger is not something that has to be handled right this second. You really need to kind of figure out where it's coming from before you make any decisions. Like if you're really hungry, there are plenty of choices that you can make that will still align to your, to your journey, and find a way to alter those things to make it work best for you.
Mm-hmm. That was such a powerful takeaway for me at that class. Oh my God. Nat, what about you?
There's a lot running through my brain, but I think the one I'm gonna also just take from Laura Graybo, catch it, check it, change it. Even if you just catch it, that's important.
Mm-hmm. Mine was going to be hunger is not emergency, even though it feels like it is for you. But I think the other thing I would pass along is don't try to problem solve when you pause. Take a pause, just acknowledge what's going on, and then make a decision. Don't try to problem solve, but make a decision.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Well, we hope this conversation helps you acknowledge and work through some food noise that you might be experiencing. We always love to pass along our lived patient experience, right? We are not medical experts, we're not doctors, we're not registered dietitians, but we are patients and we are experts in our own lived patient experience. And we love to share how this journey has changed and impacted our life. So the very exciting news we have to share is that the BariNation podcast is going to start looking and sounding a little bit different. And by different, what we mean is polished, professional, clean, still fun, still engaging, same conversation, same vibe, just a little bit elevated.
We're leveling up a little bit.
We're leveling up a little bit. The BariNation podcast is going to be professionally produced, and we are thrilled about that. When Jason and I started recording 4 years ago, I don't even know how long. I mean, like, we literally, yeah, right? Like, we sat on Zoom, we hit record, and we had a conversation. And those conversations blossomed into Natalie joining us, into the BariNation support community. It has really grown into an organization that supports people not only all over the United States, but all over the world. We have partnered with some amazing clinics like the Kentucky Bariatric Institute, like Advent Health Central Florida. We have amazing sponsors, and we are really ready to elevate the podcast so that we can continue to share these insights, connect with experts, and reach more and more people. So if it looks a little different, if it sounds a little different, it's because it is a little different, and we are just flipping over the moon about it. We're so excited, so excited. It's kind of been a long time coming, but at the same time, it's kind of hard, right? Like you fall in love with what you do and you're like, oh, but I don't really want to change, but I do want to change. Like,
well, but the best thing about it is we had these conversations, about the changes, and we realized that there are some things that have to stay the same. Just because it's what, it's how we've built this and how it's grown and how it's blossomed, like you said. But, change doesn't have to be bad, as long as you can incorporate some of the things that you've been doing along the way in with some of the newer stuff, and growth is possible from doing those things. Like it's going to be amazing. And I'm excited for people to actually get to hear, the small little changes that we've made.
mm-hmm.
And the only constant is change, and it's just time for us to make these changes and to level up so that we can provide just more for all of you in bigger and better ways. I mean, we're still BariNation. We're still east to west at the core. Shout out to the OG listeners. But because we have those now, we have OG listeners and we have new listeners, which I love. But yeah, we're still us at the core. We're just leveling up. We're just getting a little more polished, and we're going to have a team to help us produce this, which is, I could kiss their feet if it wasn't virtual.
Right. Oh, I mean, just to, yeah, it's been so interesting, right? Because as we've gone down this creative process and made the decision to make this move, what we've realized is it has opened us up to the possibility of the future. And we've gotten so creative with the podcast again. I guess we've just become engaged. We've become more focused. I don't know. I mean, it's just weird. We've always been those things, but I feel like now it's at this other level, because now all of a sudden we have the ability to do more things with the podcast and to have different kinds of conversations with new types of people and to reach new audiences, new eyes, new ears, new hearts, new minds. It's just, it's a thrilling opportunity, and we are just beyond excited for this. So if you are one of those OG listeners when we were east to west WLS, thank you for sticking with us all this time. We know how crazy our audio levels have been. We know how wacky the video is. Like, we know, we see it and we hear it. We just never had the skill or the ability to make it be anything other than what it was. But now we do. And because you have stuck with us for so long, we are to that place now where we get to change and grow. So thank you. And if you are a new follower, listener, watcher, welcome to the show and welcome to the future of what BariNation is going to grow into. We really couldn't do it without you. We couldn't do it without you sharing the podcast, rating the podcast, giving us your feedback, letting us know when things didn't go the way that you expected. letting us know that you absolutely loved a guest or an episode. All of that feedback we really do take and we appreciate. So many of you also support the podcast. You are a monthly podcast supporter, and your support is making this change happen. So that support means that you value this podcast, that you get something out of it, that you don't want it to go away, and that you want to be a supporter of it. You want to help fill this house for other people and for our community. So if you are a supporter, thank you. And if you would like to become a supporter, we would love to have you on the BariNation team. Just go to BariNationPodcast.com and become a supporter. Help us build this organization from really its foundation, because we are building something that is going to be here for generations, and you can be a part of that with us. So that's the big news. We are thrilled. So this next podcast episode next week should look and sound and feel a little bit different. And we would love your feedback on that. You can send us an email, hello@BariNation.com. If you are listening on Spotify, there's ways that you can complete our poll questions, or you can answer a question. Absolutely go there. You can send us a DM on Instagram, or send us a DM or make a comment in the BariNation membership community if you are a member over there. We always dive deep on the podcast conversations in the community. They always come up in our support groups, classes, and meetups. And sometimes we just go live to continue the conversation about the podcast. So if you are really looking to level up the support that you're onboarding along your bariatric journey, join the membership community, BariNation.mn.co. Natalie and I were talking about this earlier today. It's like, what is the community? Sometimes it's hard to describe because there's just so much there. But today, what we settled on is it's a place for you to learn and practice what it means to be a bariatric patient at every stage of the journey. So you could just be thinking about surgery, or you could be 15 years post-op. You could have R and Y, or you could be a 3-time bariatric patient like Natalie. It is where you can go to practice what it means to be a bariatric patient. So we hope to welcome you there. All right, my friends, I think we did it.
I think we did it.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. We hope you are leaving with something valuable, and we hope you are inspired to continue to do this very deep work of weight loss surgery. Jason, my friend, you want to take us out?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to say I'm thankful for both of you, because without both of you, I would not be in the position that I am in my life, in my journey, in being a whole grown up and doing things that I never thought I would want to do, let alone get to do, have the ability to do. And I was thinking about it today, just doing a lot of reflection on how amazing it's been, because we are on almost at our 4-year podcast anniversary. And so it's just phenomenal to see the growth that we've been through and how we support each other. And I just wanted to say I'm thankful for both of you all. Yeah. And to everybody else, just remember, at the end of the day, you've got this, we've got you, and we will see you next time.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.